today we are going to cover a little bit, and I know you guys have done this before already, about creating a resume and a cover letter. In English class, I do know you guys created one. I do know you guys had I think it was a big project that you guys had to do. According to Miss Young, who is my co-teacher second hour, she stated basically that you guys had to do a resume for them. And so you did it quarter one. One of the things is that you guys have already talked a little bit about this. I know that in English class that you as an employer, and depending upon what happens with the economy, it's going to make it much harder for you because your job is to convince the person you're sitting across from that you will be successful and that you will bring success to the organization, that you are not just a spectator on the wall. You are not, over this weekend, we had a get together. My nephews, this is the first time our family had gotten together in a very long time, in probably 6 months, 7 months. So my nephews both work at a retail store, and they both called out with a family emergency, because one can't show up if the other one claims a family emergency, because they both work at the same place. And so they came, and that's one of those things where I'm like, well, we haven't seen each other. One of my nephews didn't realize, Caleb didn't realize that my son Devin had moved up to Prescott and was coming down on the weekends to visit, and he moved 4 months ago. So he didn't realize that. Stories were shared, laughs were had, basketball was played. It was a lot of fun. The reality is that as you guys move forward in life, your job is going to be to start to convince somebody that you are an asset. Okay. The biggest challenge and the biggest thing I always tell all of my kids, and they're the same thing as you, is make yourself invaluable. Make it so that if they were to fire you, it would hurt. That you bring a lot to the table. There are certain people in the past, if they can fire you and replace you in a matter of a day because you don't really matter that much, why would they even hire you or keep you in the first place? If you're one of those employers or employees that basically sit there and you knew if you left that the company would struggle for a bit, is that not a good thing to be that way? I was that way throughout most of my career. I've done that. We're realizing that now I don't sit there and hold all the keys and keep everything secret. I do share because you'll have to get training from somebody. But one of the things that you guys have to do is understand when you go in and talk to somebody, you have to convince them that you are the person that needs to be hired. Okay. Now on here, the first of all things, there's a video. What's ironic is I pulled this from a national resource, yet a lot of the video components that we are going to watch today are actually from Grand Canyon University, from GCU. That's not planned on my part. When I pulled it up the first time, when I got this curriculum, I was like, ooh, this is pretty cool. They're going to talk a little bit about a resume and what you guys have already know about. Okay. And then when they're doing this, just what I want you to think about when you are doing these things is what would be three common goals that a resume and a billboard share, because he's going to give you an analogy. Like, if you guys are fully aware, I mean, everybody here, most of you drive. You guys are fully aware how billboards work. Okay. It's a quick advertisement. It tells you basically it's an advertisement or a job. I mean, there's the Lerner and Rowe one. There's the one that's been on the corner of Higley and what is that? Williamsfield, where they had the tattoo lawyer. Where it's basically just him standing there with his shirt off. Okay, or I mean with his sleeves ripped off with a nice tie. That's a billboard. I'm like, okay, I've seen it. I'm like, that's interesting. I remember that one. Okay. Other ones, I can remember most. Okay. And so for you guys, it's what it is that is an effective marketing challenge. Okay, and so we'll watch this real quick. When it's on the wrong side again. Damn you, son.
Hi, I'm Dave Stingley, career advisor.
Hold on, let me back it up. Look, there's
Welcome
this.
to our resume writing videos.
Hold on.
Series of videos to help you.
Shut up.
Hi, I'm Dave Stingley, career advisor here at Grand Canyon University Career Services Department. Welcome to our resume writing video series. Series of videos to help you improve your resume writing skills. The resume is truly a marketing tool used to attract potential employers, just as a billboard is used to attract potential customers. Think about the goals of a billboard. There's three. One, to attract the customer's attention. Two, to sell them on a product or service. And three, to tell them where to buy that product or service. So when you compare that to your resume, there's really not much of a difference. What's your main goal of your resume? To attract potential employers. Get them interested in what you have as far as a product, you, your talents, your skills, your abilities, and then let them know how to get a hold of you. Include your full contact information on your resumes. Now, just as a billboard is only viewed for a few short seconds while you're flying down the interstate, so too is your resume. On average, hiring managers review resumes or read resumes for 10 to 20 seconds and really only actually look at the top 1/3. Keep in mind that resumes don't land you the job. Resumes get you a phone call. Once that phone rings, the resume has done its job. Other than that, it's the interview that gets you the job. Here's a few general writing tips to help keep your resume professional. Stay consistent in how you are presenting information. For example, no font changes or switching between numerical dates and spelling out the month. Use reverse chronological order when presenting education and experience. Avoid using I and other personal pronouns. Do not include high school information. No need to place references available upon request at the bottom. Keep the resume organized and easy to read. Use bullet points. Always stay focused on your accomplishments and achievements as they are related to the position you're pursuing. For more information, check out the Career Services website at gcu.edu/career services for a variety of online tools as well as our other resume writing videos.
All right, so tips. Here are the couple, right? Come on, back up, Zucca. Right here. What's interesting about this, okay, there used to be common knowledge. In one statement he said, imagine you as, so just I'll be honest with you, I think a lot of you, I always have goals for all of my students that no matter what career you work in, you guys, I hope all of you become a manager somewhere someday, where you're in charge of a hiring process and you got to look through the clientele. One of the things you got to understand when you're doing that is you will have resumes for open positions. And you will, it's what he said, you have 15 to 20 seconds. We're looking very quick at a resume. If you guys have ever went to Word and you pull up a Word document here and you go to, so I'll do a new one here. And you guys have basically, from a template, if you guys type in budget, or not budget, sorry. I don't know why I had that in my brain. Maybe it's because I got to fix mine. There's some right there. You guys type in resume, and as it stands right now, you guys have a lot of these options that come up. Now, my only problem with some of these is if somebody is in here doing resumes, something like this, do you think somebody else is just lazily going along and creating the same one that you are? That's what you have to question and ask yourself, especially depending on what career you guys are going into. Here is, and the resume is a pretty simple document, but it can be pretty difficult to look at. Now, when I was going through my stuff, I realized I have one written up already. It's old, but this is the one that when I started, he said you got 1/3. They read the top third. That's my top third. It's just a statement I actually stole or borrowed from an individual named, I got cut off, sorry, Joe Bostaff, who's a friend of mine, who he sent me his resume. And Joe is an individual who works as a teacher for basis, physics teacher, He has 2 PhDs, worked at Motorola, did the patents on the original Razor phone with the flip screen and all that stuff. And he had this. And so I basically put this in as my blurb. My resume doesn't look like most people's because it's formatted differently. It doesn't say anything about who I am except for the fact of this, that I can verify that I have a record of accomplishments, that I'm highly motivated. This resume led to 9 interviews. Okay, now as a teacher, I know they always want to look at you and say, okay, where's it at? I actually don't talk much about my education, except for when it came down to when it said bullet points. I was different and used career versus professional. This was before I became a teacher. This basically resume, and then on the back side, I know there's a bit of controversy behind resumes. When you guys did yours, you won't have all of this information on there because you don't have that much experience. So you would do 1 page. But I know there's a bit of controversy because when I go on the Word document, I see all this white space. I was always told when I did a resume, try to eliminate as much white space as possible and put in information or space it out so that they understand. So right away, I don't talk anything about my career experience until I get to the back side. In fact, the whole front was basically in bold letters. Why should I hire you? Well, it's because I can be a leader. I am personable and versatile. And be like, okay, those are 3 adjectives. Let me keep reading. Here is where the small world comes into play. So you guys can see I did Gilbert Hospital for a while, financial analyst, but most of you, and I'll see if I can try to get it, there's a line at the very bottom of this that says, at the time, I was current president of Desert Ridge High School Jaguars Track and Field Booster Club. And I also helped with a lot of different areas. If anybody doesn't know, so I decided to put that on this particular resume at the very last moment. And my daughter, so to make the long story short, sometimes how you guys have to understand that it is a small world. My daughter in 7th grade wanted to play volleyball, and so she did in the middle school. And 8th grade, the same teacher that she had basically said, hey, you want to be running the front lines, you should run track. So my daughter in 8th grade decided to run track, and you can run hurdles. So she did that. And then she basically, from that moment, went out and ran hurdles basically the rest of her high school career until she was a senior in high school, went to state a couple of times, which is good for her, especially in 6A. In 5A, you can be a slightly slow turd and still make it to state. When you're in 6A, that's not necessarily the case. You got to have some speed on you at times. And so she went. As a junior, I decided they had just started the booster club. One of the coaches asked me, hey, would you be the president? And I said, sure. I threw that on there as a little blurb. Long story short, what I didn't realize is that Mr. Stengel, you guys know who was our athletic director, he was the one that interviewed me. He had actually hired he used to be the athletic director at Desert Ridge and had hired the track coach. So before I even had an interview with Mr. Stengel here at Williamsfield, there was a 30-minute conversation about me between the coach at Desert Ridge and between Mr. Stengel. And he basically, Coach Moody put in a word and said, if you don't hire that man, you're an idiot, is what he basically told me. So when I say it's a small world, I had no idea going into that interview that they knew each other. Until after I walked out of it, and Daryl and Mr. Stengel was like, hey, it's a great opportunity. We would like to take a chance on you and have you come. And so, long story short, I came here. I did have one other job offer, acceptance from Queen Creek. Let's just say, thank God I didn't go there. I would have had to teach Algebra 2 there. And then with all the craziness that's happened at Queen Creek over the last couple of years, especially because I'm as a new person coming in, I've been fortunate, even though I know some of you in here and more my second hour than this. How many of you here have missed DeBell as a freshman?
Oh
Okay.
boy, why don't you bring up that name?
So, because if without Miss Dubell, okay, I'll be honest, without her, my first year, I probably wouldn't have made it through. Because I used a lot of the resources. Now, I know she went crazy with the interactive notebook her very last year. She wanted to try it, and she went like everybody glued stuff in, and the pages were probably all sticking together, and it was just a crazy time. But
She was just crazy.
for me,
It wasn't just a notebook. She was just crazy.
it was a great way to she helped me to kind of get an understanding of what it took. So I'm always grateful for her on that aspect. So what you guys have to understand is when you write these, okay, you have to do something maybe some of you aren't used to, which is talk about how you are a self-starter, how you are great at things, how you troubleshoot problems. Some of you in here maybe have never troubleshot anything in your entire life. And instead, you just wait for something to happen. Some of you in here are the type of individual that is a go-getter, does what they can to succeed at all costs, okay, works hard. When given a task that you truly love, you will do everything in your power to make it look great. I've seen some of you individuals do that, okay, especially when it comes to things that you love. The problem is that you got to understand and learn to take it outside of that and do that into things that maybe you don't necessarily love. And that's a good look, isn't it? And so that's what the resume is all about for you guys. It's understanding, not the components, but understanding you're trying to basically attract people to you. All right. Okay, couple things. Tips. Now, I know you guys may already watched stuff like this, but here are some recruiters that are going to talk about these things, do's and don'ts. There is an interview, guys. These are like, it's a little cartoon that talks about do's and don'ts when you're basically writing a resume. And this is from a recruiter. If anybody doesn't know who a recruiter is, some of you in here, as you get older, okay, and I would actually use them. I used them twice, and they do a good job where you walk into a recruiter's office and you interview with them. And if they like your interview process, then they will actually put you in touch and contact with potential employers. All right. So some of you in here are going to start looking for jobs, and you're going to send resumes out to everybody, and nobody's going to hear back from you. You're not going to hear back from anybody, and you're going to think, what's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. Problem is that sometimes they go through a recruiting agency, and you guys will want to do that. Okay. Where you'll have a good tip. So here is tips, more stuff. If you guys have never
Good
heard.
grammar and spelling are important, but if you want to write essays that inspire,
I don't.
messages that forge brighter connections.
Hi, I'm Mike, and this is my friend Jeff. But you probably know us as the interview guys. Today, Jeff and I are talking about one of the most important requirements for getting a job interview, your resume.
Whether you're applying for a job as a cashier at a donut shop like our friend Shirley here, or as the CEO of a major corporation, your resume is an extremely important part of your job search.
You wish you were applying for a job here, Jeff. I mean, you come here so much that you may as well work here.
What can I say? I'm a bit of a long john guy.
A few more of these donuts and you'll be looking more like a wide john guy. Anyway, your resume acts as the first impression with your potential employer and ultimately can be the deciding factor in whether or not you even get an interview.
And that's why we decided to give you our top 5 tips for getting the most out of your resume. And make sure you watch this video until the end, because we're going to show you exactly how to make sure your resume stands out against all of your competition. So what's the first tip, Mike?
Our first resume tip is to keep it simple in terms of design. If your resume looks cluttered and confusing to you, imagine what the hiring manager is going to think, that you're a cluttered and confused employee. You also want to stay away from using any fancy designs and fonts. That means none of your signature smiley faces or hearts, okay, Jeff?
Copy that, Mike. Tip number 2 is that you need to include important keywords in your resume. Companies nowadays use digital database technology to scan resumes for important keywords, meaning that if you don't have those keywords in your resume, then your resume won't get put in the yes pile. You can generally find the best keywords to use in the job description.
Our third resume tip is to use what we like to call power words. Instead of writing that you worked on this or worked on that,
All right, did everybody get that last part, by the way? That managers are so lazy nowadays, not lazy, but they see so many resumes that they put it through an automated program to read your resume so that if you don't have any of the keywords from the job description in your resume, they won't even look at it. Okay, so I have 4 different versions of a resume. You guys need to make sure that when you write one out, you would want to make sure at this part, so this is why I make it flexible. When I showed you guys mine, on the flexibility part, that's what this is for right here. Okay, where I start with this little blurb. I have another one I can pull up where I show you my original resume that I actually have. It's a Word document. It says something similar to this, but usually as a teacher, they ask you to know about Microsoft Office. And so I threw that in on my resume. On my original that I actually have, and I can show you what that looks like. The problem with that one is it does have my, we'll see if this works. It does have, let me look, which I don't really care too much about. Hold on. On my original one, it does actually look a lot different. Here it is right here. Has my old address. Yay. What the hell? Oh, thanks, LinkedIn. I don't need your help. All right, on this, when you guys are going through this part, I don't have Microsoft Office anywhere in here. This is my Word document part. As a matter of fact, this is basically what I wanted to do and look for a different career when I was going more into accounts payable again. When you make a resume, the bottom half doesn't change. What you would want to focus on is making sure you put keywords and a description up here. So that way it gives you guys the opportunity. So if you're going to go in for an executive assistant somewhere, if you're going to go in for an office manager type job, if you guys are going to go into a tattoo parlor shop, if you're going to go anywhere, you would put whatever the job description is in here at the top. Okay. If they're looking for technology, you throw it in at the top. You throw in keywords like I have on my original PDF. Okay, where it talks about basically, I just say I'm good at Microsoft Office because that was one of the prerequisites of mine as a teacher. And then they want to know about, okay, can you communicate with them? Okay, professionally, actually. And then, of course, you throw in the word teacher, and then it reads the resume. So please make sure you guys understand things are getting more complicated out there for you. People aren't reading these. Instead, they're using keywords as they go through, and you have to make sure that you find them. And then they're going to talk about power words. That makes sense to you guys. Okay, please make sure you understand. Trying to set you guys up for future success and not just to send out resume after resume after resume and never get anything in return.
Our third resume tip is to use what we like to call power words. Instead of writing that you worked on this or worked on that, try using more effective vocabulary like implemented, developed, initiated, or executed. These power words will show the potential employer that you are capable and intelligent.
Tip number 4 is to remember to tailor your resume to the job you're applying for. Every job you apply for is going to have a unique set of requirements, and you should ensure that your experience and skills are completely aligned with those requirements. You should have a different, unique resume for every job you apply for.
And last but not least, tip number 5 is to consider getting professional help. While you're definitely capable of putting together an acceptable resume, in today's grueling job market, sometimes acceptable just isn't enough. It's really important that you stand out, so having a professional writer in your corner will not only save you a ton of time, but also ensure your first impression is a memorable one.
Okay, so now you have the tools to ensure that your resume passes all the tests with flying colors and always ends up on the yes file. But as you know, this is only the first step toward getting a job.
The most important step is the next step, and that is acing your job interview. But in order to do that, you're going to need to know how to give perfect answers to the toughest interview questions.
But don't worry, because the interview guys have got your back. Because we've prepared a special report that outlines exactly how to prepare perfect answers to every interview question.
Nope, we're okay.
That's right. We walk you through our proven step-by-step process.
All right, thank you, buddy, for trying to sell me something. All right, so long story short, same thing. Here's my Word document one, okay? Is that me? No, okay. Here is, by the way, just to let you guys know, here's a reality that you guys need to have. This is my non-teaching one. When I go in my career, I go right to professional highlights. If you guys remember on my teacher one, okay, on this one here, I had my second piece because as a teacher, what's more important is understanding student interaction. That's what they're looking for. I have at least 2 different resumes. So you have to tailor it. You have to understand that if you guys are going for job A, B, or C, make a blank one that looks great. And then that you guys can fluff and add to, please. Okay. That way you guys will be more successful and you'll get more on the yes pile like they talk about. Okay. That is a reality that I've done and it's worked. Okay. For you guys, if you guys go along and you start to say, okay, how can I make myself better? That's how you can do it. So from a recruiter, okay? If you guys don't know, look, I talked about before, what a recruiter does. They're the ones, ladies and gentlemen, that basically sit there, and that's their whole job, is to go out and look at people's resumes, and then they will tell you how to basically do some things. Now, here is one, get this ad out of here. All right, here's one thing I do want you guys to understand. Sometimes there is something called now a video resume. If you guys want to learn a little bit about different things, okay, there's a lady, author of Unbeatable Resumes. They're a Dallas-based recruiting and job placement powerhouse. And here's the president that talks about how to share some of the secrets. We'll play this a little bit. Let me see if I can get this onto. I'll watch it on YouTube because that adds.
I think a video resume is
Bother.
terrific if you have the right personality for it. There's several ways to go about it. You want to start with, okay, what computer are you going to use? If it's on your desktop or your laptop, make sure you're looking up at the camera. Don't look down at your desk. So you're looking up. You want to dress professionally, as if you're going into somebody's office and you're having an actual face-to-face interview. You want to keep things short, no more than 3 minutes. And make it snappy, but speak slowly. Don't go too fast. And you want to actually make sure you look around behind you in the background. Look where your camera is going to be recorded. Make sure there's nothing on the walls. And make sure that it's quiet in the room where you are. You don't want any sound distractions. I think it's really important to practice what you want to say. You want to start by giving your full name. And you want to say what were some of your top jobs. And finally, boast a little bit. Don't be bashful. Say why you are such a terrific employee, why they want to have you on your team. And then finally, wrap it up by saying thanks, and I look forward to hearing from you, and ask, when you wrap it up, have your friends and family review it for you, because they may catch some little things that you didn't notice when you were doing it. There's several really great places that you might want to consider.
All right, so one of the things is as you guys go through with a resume, there is a standard now where you don't necessarily have to sit there and do a paper version. However, one of the things that you guys have to understand is people are obsessed with a resume because people spend so much time, money, and effort in writing a resume. This is the one activity within a job search that they can control, that you guys can. Okay. Instead of picking up a phone call and asking to have a face-to-face interview, okay, here's the reality. My dad is dealing with this right now with his company in Michigan. They're having a downturn, or the times are tough. He agonizes over rejection, where he has to basically tell people bad news. Okay, my dad is a very cheerful individual who loves to share positive news, and when you got to share bad news, it harms. So how do you make a unbeatable resume? Okay, no more than 2 pages, gets read in 10 seconds. Be sure the content level is on level with any high school senior could understand. Should be able to easily understand exactly who you have worked for and what that company does. Just because you put something like Chick-fil-A in doesn't mean everyone is familiar with what you did within that. Because you could have been a cook, you could have been a cashier, you could have been running a drive-through or being a line leader somewhere. Understand there are different categories to everywhere that you work. Be more specific. If you were at a car wash, but you were in sales, that's different than being out there actually cleaning the cars. Okay? Then I was the person scrubbing and washing it down. Those are two completely things. Is that correct, Jared, or is that wrong? So what you guys need to understand is be specific in your reality as you go through. Avoid fancy font. Okay, by the way, do not use, even though I love it, Comic Sans. Okay, if anybody's ever seen that font, it's very loopy, it looks great, but it's very unprofessional. Nobody likes Times New Roman, which is this is what this is right here. But that's the way businesses are. Okay, now as you go through, unless you're going into a creative field, ladies and gentlemen, I would always recommend if you're going into an artsy field, please make sure you guys understand, okay, if you're going to do art, would you want to have this resume look like this? No. Okay? Play it to your clientele, who you're doing it. Okay? They already talked about reverse chronological order, which means go from present and then to your first job ever. Please make sure you guys understand that. Use big words. If you guys don't know any big words, use a thesaurus, please. Go online to dictionary.com. Instead of saying, I worked hard, find out different words for I worked hard. Okay? Heck, you can even put I slept in class, but you could put some type of awesome analogy instead of saying I slept in class. I dubiously closed my eyes to rest my brain, to reset it on a daily basis so that I understood everything that was given to me. I don't know. Stories sell. Now that's only when you get in. Okay, this is about percentages. I know some of you guys know what percentages are. You're in my math class, so I know some of you technically don't, and that's fine. All right, so when you know what these are, you would want to talk about these things. Make sure you guys have customer-oriented skills if that's what you're going for. Be creative. Don't put a photo on your resume. Unless there is one caveat to this. If anybody in here goes into a field of theology or ministry, that is actually encouraged to put actually a photo on it. Just to let you know, it's weird, but it does. Be real, okay? Be honest with everything that you say, and then basically make sure you guys understand. This is the biggest key thing, and we'll talk about it later, which is networking. The best way my kids have always gotten a job is always through somebody else that already had one, that basically my kids got a job in there. My daughter's first job at Chili's, she had her best friend at the time was working there. She got a job interview and got a job there. Okay. My son, when he worked at the High Tide Seafood, his best friend at the time washed dishes at High Tide and said, hey, come do it. He stayed there for 3.5 years. Then my youngest son got in there doing that. The only one of my children, and then their second jobs, though, they have done it on their own. Okay, my current job that my oldest son has is because he got word of mouth resume. He got a word of mouth from my mom that already worked there. Said, hey, give him a shot. My son went in there, but did the interview on himself and blew him away. You guys have to understand your first or second job, you may have to have somebody help you to get in there. Some of you might not need that, but some of you will need that network connection, okay? So just be prepared for that and never burn those bridges. And here's one thing, I will do this real quick with a cover letter, and then that'll be pretty much it for the day, because we're not going to do 9 or 10, by the way. Now, if you click on these links, 9, 10, and 11, they'll actually pop up, but do not do those. We're not doing a case study, okay? I am going to show you guys something later where you guys can actually feeling that some of you may not like how you do a resume, and I'll show you some alternatives that are out there. There's a actually really good video about doing a video resume. So if anybody in here is going for any type of video analogy, you can do that. But realize And then tomorrow we'll work on the
Put
exit
great
ticket.
writing to work with Grammarly,
Thank you,
your
buddy.
personal writing assistant.
Hi, I'm Jeff, and this is my friend Mike, but you probably know us as the interview guys. Today, we're putting our feet up and enjoying the last bit of summer sunshine.
Enjoying? I wish you told me this was the plan, Jeff. It's 90 degrees out, I'm standing over top of a smoldering barbecue, and I'm wearing a black suit. You seem to be enjoying yourself, though.
Actually, it's a little chilly over here. How are those burgers coming along anyway? I'd like to eat before I run in and grab a sweater. Anyway, as I said, it's the end of the summer, which means it's time to get back to work. Many of you will be looking for new employment, which means that your cover letter needs to be in tip-top shape.
And that's why today Jeff and I are talking about cover letters, because we keep seeing job seekers everywhere making mistakes that ultimately prevent them from getting interviews. There's a good chance you're making the same mistake right now, which is why we decided to give you the Interview Guy's top 5 cover letter tips. So what's the first tip on our list, Jeff?
Tip number 1 is to make sure to address the cover letter to a specific person. Generally, the person in charge of the department you're applying to, or the hiring manager in charge of the interview. If you don't know the correct name, we suggest you contact the company and find out who it will be.
Our second tip is to avoid simply repeating the information in your resume. Instead, use your cover letter to introduce and highlight your personality, curiosity, and your level of interest in the field you're applying to work in.
Our third tip is to keep it short and simple, yet dynamic. Definitely no more than 1 page and probably closer to a half a page. 3 paragraphs should do the trick. Resist the urge to ramble on and instead dive right into the interesting parts right away.
Tip number 4 is to use keywords to enhance the point you're trying to make, whether it pertains to skills, references, or any other relevant information. Companies are using software to screen cover letters for keywords, and if you don't have them, you'll likely not get an interview. The best place to find these keywords is in the job description.
And as always, our final tip is to tailor your cover letter to the company you're interviewing with. The company has an idea of what their perfect candidate will look like, and it's your job to convince them that you are this person. You can do this by identifying and including in your cover letter the qualities that they put a lot of value in.
So there you have it, the Interview Guy's top 5 cover letter tips. Mastering these tips will really help make sure that your cover letter stands out amongst your competition. But that's only half the battle.
All right, so now he's going to try to sell something again. Here is another thing. Okay, when I'm going through this process, and I understand some of you, I actually, if I have it on this one or if I have it on my other hard drive, I think I have it on my other hard drive. I actually have, ladies and gentlemen, for every time I did a cover letter, thanking individuals and places that interviewed me. I had one cover letter that looked the same, but once again, I changed everything in it. And I wrote 8 cover letters thanking people every time. And you do that, actually, you put it in the front, and then you actually do another letter at the end saying thank you very much. And so that way they see both. Sometimes you won't know who the interview person is. You will have to pick up the phone and call, or you can put to whom it may concern, or you can put hiring manager, stuff like that, okay? It is a reality that you guys need to face, okay? When you're going through this, don't be shy. If you really want a job somewhere, go and get it, please. The biggest thing I want to see everybody in here is I want to see everybody, as I've told my students last year and the year before, I want to see you make it rain. Come back and say, look what I got. Okay, I have one student that I know is never going to do it. He wants to come back and come with a fancy car and make it rain in my parking lot. He was supposed to go his dream was to go to the University of Oregon as a quarterback. He's not a quarterback anymore. Now he's a defensive back. He could still go to Oregon if he could ever get his grades up. I don't know. We'll see. For you guys, what you have to do is make sure your job, when you're doing a resume and a cover letter, okay, is to always catch somebody's attention and to fluff yourself up. Your cover letter should work as tell them why you want to work there and what value you would bring. And everything always needs to be tailored towards, ladies and gentlemen, what you are bringing to the table for an organization. You do not want to just walk in and say, yeah, you should hire me just because. You have to present yourself. And this is the hard reality that I think some people are starting to grasp, is that when you go look for jobs, how many of you guys have looked for jobs and it took a while to get your first one? Some of you may have gotten lucky. I know my wife has never actually interviewed for a job because she networked and people knew who she was. So they would walk in as like a formality. They'd be like, hey, we already know you because you know such and such. And so we're just going to sit here, ask a couple questions, shoot the breeze. And then guess what? You got the job. Because that was one thing that she described to me. And so for you guys, it's the same reality. You'll have to go through a couple interviews. Maybe the first one was like, awesome, you're in. It's not always going to be that easy. Okay, maybe you sent out resumes to a bunch of people. Maybe you didn't. There's no feeling in the world like getting rejected over and over and over. It sucks. But guess what? That's a part of life. Okay, where it makes you stronger and makes you try to see, okay, what can I do better in the long run? Tomorrow, we're going to go a little bit about professional profile, which would be doing LinkedIn or even some of your social media pages as you guys get older, how you want to present that to the real world. Some of you may struggle with that. Some of you maybe have never set anything up like that. There is an activity related to that, but we're probably not going to do it because you would have to set up one for a celebrity. And I wouldn't want you guys to struggle through that part of it. The big thing this week is we're going to push forward and try to get through a lot of this stuff. I'll see if I can find some math related items. However, there aren't too many with this. This is more about you guys making sure you start to think more long-term scope, which we'll find later on in this unit. We're going to pull up some, not just networking tips, but what it's going to take for you guys. What are the minimum job requirements? What type of education would you need? All that good jazz, right? Any questions? Okay, so that's it. Tomorrow morning, first thing we come in, I'll help you guys with the exit ticket to make sure we do the exit ticket for this unit. I'll make sure it's up and live. I know it's on right now, Canvas, but I don't think I put a due date on it. So I have to get that one up and running. Any questions? All right, sweet. So I'll bring your computers for tomorrow, and then we'll do that, and it should be pretty simple.